Hello, welcome to season 5 of Hot Pot Talks. My name is Jen Sunshine here with my dear friend and longtime creative partner David Ing, as well as our special guests Namande and Andrew. David and I are the co-artistic directors of Love Intersections, a media arts collective based in Vancouver, Canada, that produces intersectional and intergenerational film and artwork from underrepresented communities of color. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that Hotpot Talks is organized from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. As uninvited guests, we recognize and extend our gratitude to the stewards of this land who have been protecting it since time immemorial. Part of our work as activists and queer artists on unceded territories means working in solidarity with ongoing Indigenous struggles for sovereignty, decolonization, reparations, and land back.
Yeah, and for season 5, we are excited to be collaborating with a new co-host. Namande Mkhalisa is a longtime collaborator of Love Intersections. Namande is a fat Black feminist in love with stories. She is fascinated by the ways people's lived realities shape their joys and pains, and believes that there is healing to be found in the stories we choose to tell, and salvation, perhaps, in who we choose to tell them to. Radical softness is her weapon of choice in a world that often casts her as a hard, fat, Black obstacle. Food, hunger, sex, access, and desirability are her favorite topics. She is a feminist scholar. Fat activism, sustainability, climate resilience, and food security are her passions. Hi, Namande. And just introducing now our guest, our featured guest today. In today's episode, we have a longtime Love Intersections collaborator and dear friend, Andrew Shopland. Andrew is a white queer man. He is a witch of the reclaiming tradition and a radical fairy. In those spaces, he goes by the name Aquifer. Andrew lives in the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people on the Salish Sea, where his family have been settlers for 3 generations. For his day job, he does a different type of magic as a software developer working in climate change and against it. Welcome, Andrew. How's it going?
Thank you. Good morning. Good evening. What time is it in South Africa?
It is, what is it? It's 20 past 7 in the
Good
evening.
evening. Good evening. Good morning.
Andrew, we have to start with the line from your bio. He is a witch of the reclaiming tradition and radical fairy. The inspiration of the season that Namande wanted to collaborate with us about was like around decolonizing spirituality, sort of all of our own different journeys of reclaiming or rediscovering our spiritual roots or our spiritual paths. Yeah, I'm curious. Tell us more about the Witch of Reclaiming tradition and the Radical Fairies.
For sure. So, reclaiming here is with a capital R, proper noun, because that is the name of the tradition. Reclaiming grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 70s at the intersection of the feminist movements, uh, combining with the neo pagan goddess movement, as well as a healthy dose of anarchism and activism. And it, among many things, tried to answer the question of like, well, if we as white people, if we as like settlers of European descent
Mm.
want to connect with spirituality and religion that isn't patriarchal and
Mm.
isn't, as colonial as Christianity is, how do we do that without going and rummaging around in other people's cultures?
Mm.
Like lots of fun stuff in the East, lots of fun stuff in indigenous traditions. How do we how do we how do we find our own traditions
Mm.
that are relevant to us today?
Can I ask, like, how you arrived here and how you arrived at this place? Um, in your bio, but also, we've been friends for I think over a decade now.
Yeah.
But I admit I don't know your entire life story. And
Sure.
so I just have a curiosity on how you arrived, and was there a sort of defining moment, where you had sort of a shift in your thinking?
Well, I like to say that I was raised by two parents with applied science backgrounds, uh, to hold a reverence and a curiosity for the natural world. And to, I mean, a little bit of West Coast New Age thinking as well. Like the universe and all that good stuff.
Mm.
Um, so I didn't really have much Christianity to overcome in the way
Hmm.
that many of my peers did and do.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I have deep, deep formative childhood memories of spending hours in the forest and on the beach in the Gulf Islands, uh, being present with that. I mean, extraordinary space.
Mm.
I mean, just for if the audiences are not familiar with the Gulf Islands, for me, the affinity that I have towards the island and hearing sort of the feminist connection, right? Like that has always been this. There's that always that solidarity, um, of that kind of openness and the what you call the West Coast New Age, but feminists, of course, on the island have been also doing that for a very long time, just sort of women gathering spaces. And there has always been that sort of, yeah, like friendship, if you will. So I really appreciate that, because that's also, like Dave and I both did women's studies. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, part and parcel.
Yeah, I think we're very blessed to have
Yeah.
a way so close.
Yeah.
There's something about crossing water, there's something about going to an island
Yeah.
Mm.
that like inherently steps us outside of our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I was born in Taiwan, so I was born on an island, and I think there is something quite magical about all islands. I just don't quite know what that is, but it's
Mm.
like I feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So from that childhood, I found my way into my formal education is actually in geography. A little bit of natural sciences, mostly more on the human geography side of things. But again, this deep connection and relationship to space and to place, and to very specifically this place, this ecosystem, this city, uh, this ocean.
mm.
Um, in my early 20s, I found my way to the Radical Fairies, which is a historically queer men's, but now much more gender inclusive, heart centered community. Not necessarily a religious or spiritual one. For some people, it has those elements, uh, but it is a place of vulnerability and joy. And the first place that I found, uh, like a real values connection with other queer men,
Mm.
which I hadn't really found uh, before that. But the different radical fairies that I connected with, some of the ones I had the strongest connection with, were also part of this other tradition called reclaiming. And I
Mm.
knew that they were witches and they went to a thing called witch camp, and their magical facilitation was fabulous.
Mm.
And I knew at some point I would go to that and learn about those things. At some point. And then a decade ago, uh, like so many of us who were who've worked in the nonprofit world, I got super burnt out,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
got really sick, and from a number of unrelated sources, got the very clear message: look, if you're going to go out into the world and do this kind of work, you need, first of all, a physical practice to take care of your body, and then you need a
Mm.
spiritual practice to take care of your spirit, and then you can go out into the world and do that big stuff. And it wasn't out of nowhere. Like, I kind of knew I'd been procrastinating on this whole spirituality thing for a while. It was, sneaking up on me. And that was
Mm.
a very tangible moment of like, okay, clearly this piece is missing.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I went and I did a deep dive, and in a couple of years did all of the core classes in reclaiming. Uh, did a 2-year program through the Hollyhock Retreat Center on
Mm.
interfaith spiritual guidance, um, and almost like I got offered a spot. Uh, Almost went to seminary to become an interfaith
Oh.
chaplain uh,
Mm.
at the Unitarian Seminary down in Berkeley.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And when you say almost, what sort of stopped you or
it was
has,
one of those things where like everything in my life changed all at once,
Mm.
yeah.
and one of those things was very much a clear signal that like I needed to be in a stable environment and have a job with income rather than moving to another country and
Right.
switching into a career where financial stability was like not guaranteed.
Mm.
Mm.
uh, very, very grateful though. I did find my way into working in climate change then.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and for me, that's also it's not exactly the same, but it's driven by the same motivation. Like that's the magical work
Mm.
in the world that I mean I get paid to do it, which is pretty fabulous.
Yeah. Andrew, I have so when I remember one of the earliest moments of our friendship was around these conversations of spirituality and queerness, especially. You referenced in when you were talking earlier about, um, having to undo a lot of the Christian stuff, and a lot of queer people that I know that have that's a part of their journey is to and definitely a part of mine was to sort of really unpack the fundamentalist Christian upbringing that I was brought up in and hold on to and find spiritual practices that worked for me. But also like I think I remember also a conversation that we had around like, and you're alluding to this around like taking care of yourself and also your spirit as a part of not just your self-care but in terms of what you can give to the world. I wonder if we can get into that sort of more philosophical conversation a little bit more. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Um, the first thing that comes to mind is a really influential book I read. I think the name of it is The Spirit and the Flesh.
Mm.
And it's this like anthropology, I think it's an anthology
Mm.
about two spirit people
Mm.
before that name even existed. Um, and I'm glad that I read it when I did because I had enough, I don't know, competency around decolonization to
Mm.
be able to learn from it without saying, oh, this is me, I'm taking this.
Mm.
But the huge thing I took away from it was just this idea that like it was possible for queer people not to be, or for queer people to be
Mm.
not just neutral, like overcoming the Christianity queerness as bad,
Mm.
but actually going past that to necessary and sacred.
Mm. Mm.
And that like there's stuff that we can do that other people can't do.
Right.
And that of course shows up differently in all sorts of different cultures, but just that like that essence of
Mm.
my queerness is sacred and my queerness is integral, and not just for me but for like, yeah, but for the broader culture.
Mm.
Namane, it looks like you have something you're dying to say. I just want to add something as I'm hearing Andrew you speak about your spiritual practice, and I'm thinking especially in sort of today's like the current political climate where so much of the like the wellness new age community has pivoted so extremely um, to like gender essentialist,
Mm.
conservative, the wellness, like the what is it, the something to Q movement. Um, yeah, and so it's interesting to me that that there are people that don't share that are in this supposedly spiritual practice, spirituality in the West Coast, um, that don't share your sense of queer, like the expansiveness of queerness. I'm not being very articulate about this, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that it makes me think of, and the thing that I'm very grateful for, is that both Reclaiming and the Radical Fairies are intentional communities. The stuff that we do together because that's the point
Mm.
of like doing it with other people. And in contrast, I think a lot of that sort of wellness is extremely individual
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm.
and very consumer driven. If I buy these magical products, then I will be well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, and like, I certainly have my own personal practice that's like not exactly the same as what I do with Reclaiming and what I do with the fairies. But I think my spiritual identities are very much grounded in this like idea of doing this stuff together.
No, that totally makes sense, especially the like the individual versus collective intention of those two sort of paths, I guess. Sorry, Namandi, did you have something to say earlier?
So I'll be honest, I'm a bit at sea in this conversation. I'm
I
not
know.
sure.
I was gonna be like, how is this landing on Namane? Like, are you is this
I'm
really
not
like
lost.
foreign language?
So and I don't wanna offend you either, but I do have a question, and I hope it lands the way I'm hoping it should land. So my experiences of indigenous religious spiritual practice are obviously African. So I know a great deal about what we do and what we practice in South Africa. I know a great deal of what the diaspora does, right?
Yeah.
What people on the rest of the continent does, West Africa, East Africa, and then what the rest of the African diaspora across the world does. I know quite a lot about that. I know about their spiritual pantheon. I know about their worship songs. I know about their traditions and their practices, their curses, their blessings. I know that stuff. But I'm not familiar with what you were speaking about outside of like Charmed. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know anything that is not fictional, you know? So
Yeah.
I will confess I'm a bit like, wait, what's happening? So I think what will help me, if you don't mind, what are your practices? Like what is it you actually do? Is it like um circles where you create blessings? Do you have curses? Do you make love potions? What does this practice look like? Do you throw bones? Like, are there any things like that? I'd love to understand how it works in that reclaiming community. And are there any similarities? Or is it something completely different? Is it nothing like anything I know? I just like to understand that because I have no clue at all.
I love this question. This is great. Yeah,
Is there
let's
a
talk
pentagon?
pentacle. Very close.
Pentacle. Sorry, not pentagon. Pentacle. I'm sorry. What was I doing? Sorry, that's my ESL. Not the U.S. government. Pentagon.
So, okay. Um, One thing I love about reclaiming is that you could describe us as an orthopraxic community. So lots of religions are orthodoxic or have this orthodoxy where like you have to believe the same things,
Mm.
uh, and you get that in every Christian church service. There's this affirmation of like there's only one God and it's this God, and there aren't any other gods, but it's only this one. It's like okay.
Mm.
In reclaiming, we have a set of shared values, but what we're really agreeing upon is how we're going to practice those together. Because again, people are coming from all different backgrounds. Some people are theists, some people are polytheists. They believe in gods very tangibly. Some people aren't,
Mm.
but maybe they work with spirits. Um, Wide range of stuff coming together. When we come together, though, we have an agreed upon way of how we practice.
Okay.
In reclaiming, um, our rituals are ecstatic, so um, they're about energy, and they're generally about raising energy, and they're usually fairly what's the word, improvised, I guess.
Oh.
um, we would plan out a structure beforehand, but in terms of like the precise words that will be spoken, that's
Mm.
generally like in the moment what one is moved to say.
Mm.
Oh.
I like that.
Um,
Mm.
so there isn't like, here is a text that we say
Mm.
every time at every ritual, with a couple small exceptions. The liturgy of um, Samhain, which is the like festival around Halloween,
Mhm.
similar in some ways to Dios de los Muertos.
Mm-hmm.
That has a bit more the same thing every year structure.
Mm.
Mhm.
But for other rituals, um, it's what's yeah, it's what's there in that moment. The loose structure of how it works. We start by creating sacred space. In sort of more traditional religions, when you've got a church or a temple, that work has already been done
Mm.
Mm.
in building that space and sanctifying that space. You just enter it and it's already there.
Mm.
We don't have that. So we create it every time, casting a circle, calling in elements, calling in deities or spirits to like set up a container.
Mm.
Then there's what we refer to as the tofu of the ritual, not the meat of the ritual,
I love that.
uh, where sometimes we do trance work, sort of like
Mm.
guided visualization. Uh,
Mm.
Sometimes there is spellcraft, where there's like physical things being worked with. Um, Sometimes there's like sacred drama, where like the stories are acted out. It can be any number of things, but a thing happens there, and then we sing and we raise energy. So with drums, we sing like a repetitive chant, and as that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats, that builds tension and builds energy, to a climactic or a static point.
Mm.
Um, and that is sort of like, we do this work and then we like charge it up and lock it in, to like make it happen.
Mm.
And then you undo the sacred space. So do all the stuff at the beginning, but backwards to like
Mm.
clean it up. Yeah. So that's what a reclaiming ritual is, the loose outline of it.
Can I ask about the, like, how does consent play into these intentional spaces? I would imagine consent is a huge um, theme. Like I'm thinking about I guess my only sort of visual reference point is like an ecstatic dance party, or kind of dance parties where all of a sudden just the like collective energy is going to a place of ecstasy, and some in those spaces are intentional about it, some are not, and it's not quite what you're talking about. Obviously, I'm not making those necessarily those connections. I guess I'm wondering about like, is it an open practice? Is it a closed practice? Like how much of it can be witnessed? How much of it can be brought in? Who gets brought in? How is there initiation process and the ethics and consent around that? I'm very, very, very drawn to this. And I think because I have, I was raised Buddhist, and I would have partial memories of spending so much time in my grandmother's Buddhist monastery, where she's still to this day a Buddhist nun there, and having such a rich education. But because I was just, I was uplifted from that world and then immigrating to Canada at age of 9, I then have this very romanticized, I was sort of dropped in this 90s romanticized version of a witchy practice, that not to mention, as a queer woman, feminist, like it goes hand in hand, right? Like the witchiness and Eastman, like this is my people. Like I feel
Namande,
like,
these are, so just for Namande's sake, these are stereotypes of like that Jen is describing of queer women in a particular
lesbians.
neighborhood in Vancouver that are,
And we all love,
witchy.
like, if the straight version of like going to a house party, white people go to a house party, there's always someone playing Wonderwall, like some guy playing Wonderwall on the guitar. My version of that is going to a house party in East Van where my friends will pull out a tarot card and we'll
Tarot
be
card,
doing
right.
tarot readings. Like that is the
Yeah.
stereotype of my local context and sort of subculture. But I want to sort of go back to the sort of that my 90s experience, because like my first sort of, like, I loved the craft. I loved practical magic. Like there's such, like, I just love these movies, and I think, and I watch them like once a year. And so there's sort of this, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I would toss in, you alluded to it, but I would toss in also your experience with like rave culture.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
You put all of those different pieces together, and I think this would be very legible for you. Because it is like, in some ways, like very intentionally building to that like ecstatic collective experience. In terms of the question of like closed versus open practices, reclaiming is very much an open practice, and it is very intentionally anti-hierarchical. In many traditions, there is like layers of, like, you can be laity, or you can be a priestess, or you can be a high priestess, or whatever, and there is an initiation component to reclaiming, but it's very much a personal thing. It's very much like for your own development. Doesn't, with like a couple of very minor exceptions, doesn't affect the roles you can or can't take in community or in ritual. We actually consider ourselves a tradition without laity, without lay people, where everyone is a priestess and everyone co-creates the rituals. And so, like, I got to participate in rituals in like tangible roles at like my very first witch camp. And I think there's something real special about that. In terms of like how public things are, it sort of ranges. Some stuff is closed or invite only. Some stuff is like public but not advertised, if that makes sense. So like it goes up to like the reclaiming, which like listserv, and the Vancouver Reclaiming Facebook group or something like that.
Mm.
And then there's some stuff, usually Samhain, it's a bit more of an offering to the wider community. So there would be people there that like aren't priestesses or aren't reclaiming.
Mm.
Yeah, because it's an offering, because it's a bigger special thing.
Mm.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious about. Sorry, I just have so many questions, and I know David and Amanda are just. I'm talking a lot, is what I'm trying to say, but
No,
I'm just
no,
so
go ahead.
curious. Because I'm curious about the improvisational process. Because if it's deliberately or intentionally non-hierarchical, but the improvisational process, there is a natural ebb and flow, and people bring in their stuff that you want to work on. Or maybe it's not an individual stuff. Maybe it's responsive to an external world thing. Maybe it's responsive to like a crisis. But there isn't there a natural order is not the right term for this, but there is a natural sort of, and maybe natural is not the right word for it, but is there not a hierarchy of, I guess, levels of practice and what you want to bring forward to work on as a collective?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I have a question linked to that I'm just going to pop in here as well. So linked quite closely to that, in terms of doing the hard, like a lot of people call it like the shadow work of healing and that magical practice and indigenous practice and, all that kind of good, getting together as community and using that energy to solve crises is for. Is there an element of that where there are people who are mentors and are more equipped to help in those spaces, to help traumas that maybe have arisen from certain things that happen within the community? And if that's the case, that I want to know, how do you solve that? How do you go about healing in that way? Because I feel as if at the root of what you do, and please correct me, I love the way that you're very anti-colonial, and the way you move demonstrates that beautifully. I think I love that very flat structure, that warm, welcoming, but within religious practices that I'm familiar with, you do need your masters. You know what I'm saying? And there's people who are, I've done this for 50 years, so I know how to heal a trauma, So
Yeah.
in connection to what Jen was saying, how do you navigate that in your practice?
Yeah, great questions.
Mm.
At part of what Jen was getting at, I think, there is certainly structure to rituals, and like rituals are planned, and there will be a clear intention for it, and it'll be like I talk, and then Bramble talks, and then Ashtar talks. So it's not fully improvised in terms of the structure, more in the sense that like there isn't a set liturgy. We're not reading from the like Starhawk's Common Book of Prayer.
Starhawk.
Starhawk's one of the founders of Reclaiming.
She does. I don't know if she still does this, but she used to do like regular book signings and workshops at Benyon Books.
Yeah.
And sound, yeah.
But yeah, in terms of hierarchy and in terms of experience, of course, people are coming in with different types of experience and years of experience, and like I feel so grateful to get to like be in community with like elders and crones who've been doing this work for decades, from before I was born. Huge amount to be learned from them. And like, just because there isn't a formal, like they don't have a title or something, doesn't mean they're not like respected. And yeah, like there's stuff that there's plenty of stuff in ritual where like anyone could do it, but like especially for like a larger ritual, like you want someone who's more experienced to do these parts of it, whereas like these other parts of it are better, like are more accessible to newbies.
Mm.
Yeah, in terms of shadow work, in terms of like heavier, deeper stuff, that's definitely part of our tradition's practice or practices.
Mm.
Um, and I think, yeah, I don't know, like the labor of that isn't predetermined, I guess.
Mm.
Mm.
It's not like, oh, there's this person in this role and they're the person to go to for this.
Okay.
Um, but when we do that in ritual, we're caring for each other,
Mm.
and we are guiding each other. Uh, and like if you need to check in with someone after a particularly intense ritual, often there are people who've already pre offered.
Mm.
We're a community that has many counselors and therapists.
Nah.
Uh,
Mm.
so there is a wide range of professional expertise there as well.
Mm.
But then I'm reminded of a specific ritual from a few years ago where I wasn't feeling it. Like I wasn't super in it myself.
Mm.
And so I just went around and held space and witnessed other people. And
Mm.
I found my way to different experiences of like holding space for these older women who'd had sons die at the age I was at,
Oh, wow.
and just
Mm.
getting to be present and holding that. And I wasn't doing counseling. I wasn't, you
Mm.
know, formally doing stuff, but like being able to offer something was
Yeah.
Mm.
valuable there.
Mm.
Both of these people like had many more years of experience of this sort of stuff
Mm.
than me, but we were both able to bring what we could bring.
Mm.
Mm. Andrew, I remember from our previous conversation, you were talking, and this is from the opening of what you talked about in terms of like grounding your practices where you are, and you mentioned something around like paganism, a book about sacred trees, but that they don't grow here. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey and that story?
Yeah. Um, yeah. One thing I think I'd love to learn more from you, Namanda, is about these diasporic practices and like how they have
Mm.
changed just simply over time and distance or out of necessity.
Mm.
Uh, a lot of the neo-paganism in Canada, North America, um, drawing on European traditions, I would say has um, varying degrees of like authenticity. There's
Mm.
some
Mhm.
traditions that are like this is an unbroken tradition that goes back hundreds of years, and it's like maybe that's not true. Maybe from a
Yeah.
historical and anthropological perspective, that's not true. Uh, but in my opinion, that's okay.
Mm.
Mm.
Like Europe has been so Christianized for so long that the idea
Mm.
of a non-Christian tradition doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really exist. And so we end up with arguably an extremely postmodern uh, religion, in that it is new and it's recent and it smashes a bunch of stuff together, and some of it is maybe old and some of it is maybe old but like made up in the late 1800s, so it's old now but it wasn't like, you know,
Mm.
thousands of years of tradition. um, but some of it can be very British.
Mm.
um, And the story that David is referencing, I remember reading a book and it was like, these are the 10 sacred trees of witchcraft or something, and lists
Mm,
off a bunch of trees that don't grow here, don't grow
mm,
where I am of. Um, like if there's no cedar and if there's no Douglas fir and if there's no arbutus tree, like I'm not connected to that. And
mm,
so it sort of raises, I think, an interesting question of like, what is a land-based spirituality or place-based spirituality if you're not in that place?
Mm,
mhm,
Uh,
yeah.
and for me, part of my journey with that was finding ways to relate to this place and this land without trying to claim ownership of it,
mm,
trying to be more decolonial, to be a better visitor. Um, and also, like, my family's been here for 3 generations. I don't have any connection to other places.
Mm,
Um, and, like, the water that my body is made of is from here.
Mm-hmm.
It's
mm,
from Capilano watershed mostly. Um, and so what I got to eventually was, uh, this land doesn't belong to me, but I belong to it.
mm,
Um, and I am responsible
Yeah.
to it.
mm,
wow, I feel quite challenged by what you just said, that this land doesn't belong to me, but I belong to it. I'll be
mm,
honest, I guess it's because of my own history. As I mean, my people have lived on the African continent as far as I'm aware forever, right? I'm
Yeah.
from here, my whole history's from here. I mean, there's this whole history of how the Bantu, which are the people I'm from, moved from Central Africa down to Southern Africa and then into South Africa. My people are from the Eastern Cape and the Cape Town area, the Western Cape area. And then my parents and their families moved into the center of so my history's here. Um, and it kind of hurt when you said that this land doesn't belong to me. I don't know if I could live with that. I don't know how you open your heart enough to hold space for that. And I mean, I understand the history, like you say, you are settlers, but like it upset me to hear the land doesn't belong to me, because for me, a core part of my my rootedness, my anchoring in this space is this land is mine. That's how I think about it. Because I own the land and the land owns me, we can exchange blood because my blood is here. And for me, it raises really interesting questions around, for how long then are those who have settled in a space, and this is obviously another question, probably not for this hot pot talks, how long do those who have settled, how long do they wait before they claim the land? Like how long are you not going to be an owner of the land because your ancestors settled there? Do you know what I mean? What's the time period? But anyway, that's not the conversation we're having today. I think that's a really complicated conversation. I'm probably opening a lot of cans of worms, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was very interesting for
I don't.
me. Like,
I
I
think no. I
wonder.
think I think it is a part of
yeah,
somewhat a part of this conversation around. I mean, how I what I'm hearing from it, this conversation is also
mm,
how do we understand our relationship to the land? Can it be owned? And
yeah,
in the Western, in I'll just speak from this context, in
mm,
under the settler colonial system that we have, it is under that type of you know capitalistic ownership,
mm,
which doesn't have to be that way.
mm, mm,
And so,
Mm,
I mean, this is where I'm resonating with what you're talking about, Andrew, is I'm also trying to rethink my relationship to, or think about my relationship to land and territory as well. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's sort of where what I'm hearing from this
yes.
conversation.
And
I think
I'm
it
not
is.
talking about it
yeah.
from this very capitalist space of I bought the land or I conquered the land and I own it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
It's that
mm,
this is where I was born. This is the land of my
mm,
birth. I've shed tears here, I've shed blood. My people have walked here, have loved this land. Um, that makes it mine. I don't own a drop of land, by the way, in reality. Like, I don't own a home. I don't own jack. Okay? But I do, because she is my mother. I am here. And, and
Mm,
like the relationship I have with my physical human being mom, who I'm very possessive over because she's mine and I love her. I feel very closely that same relationship with the land I walk
mm,
here in South Africa, you know? And it hit a nerve when you said that, because I was like, ouch. Because if I had to think about it that way, it would hurt me. And I mean, I'm not trying to project that onto you. I'm not saying it's the same kind of thing at all. But it struck her. Like, I was like, ooh,
mm,
like I need to feel like I own her. And maybe that's a problematic way to think about religion and land and connectedness, you know, the sense of ownership and possessiveness. Because I think the truest sort of spiritual movement is one that is freer and looser, but I'm just not built that way, you know, Andrew. Like, I don't know how you
It's
feel
so
about
interesting
it.
because I'm like super how I am how that's landing on me in the
Yeah.
sort of Buddhist teaching in the Buddhist ways, the ephemeral, immaterial, that I am not like my material and my body is not like it just should just go back to the earth, to
Mm-hmm.
the land. But I feel like there is a kind of subversion when Andrew, you're saying that I don't own this land, you know, because it's for me, it's like to me, it's like the nature, Mother Nature. It's like this is all. It's more than me. It's more than the people that inhabit, the animals that inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than that,
Yes.
you know, and so
mhm,
it feels like it could include all of us, but it also doesn't matter if we are here or not. And that's where my Buddhist it comes out, right? It's this sort of detachment or non-attachment of both like the physicality, the physical realm,
Mm-hmm.
um, all of it, right? The immateriality of it all. I don't know. I'm not. Yeah.
I like how you said that. I really like how you said that. I think it's
mm,
better than my take on it. Like how you put it. It feels less. I guess it's because what you said hit me. I'm not even gonna lie, in my uterus. And when I feel something in my uterus, that's big. I felt that in my womb, and and I know when things hit me like that, it's like, okay, this matters to me. But I also always have to question myself around: am I being childish? Am I unevolved? I really like how Jenna said it though, because I feel so owned by the world and my community and all the people I love and care about. But I also feel so owned by them because I feel I own them too. And maybe I need to evolve past that. But I just, yeah. But that was just the sense I got from what you were saying. Yeah.
Well, we should do a moon ritual
Yes.
where we sync up our cycles. Sorry, Andrew.
yeah.
This is
No,
nice.
well, I'll just may say one thing. I mean, Namanda, I don't think you should apologize because this is a part of this. This is part of why we wanted to have this conversation. Is like, I think it's this is how our stories and our conversations are encountering each
Mm,
other from these very very vast different regions and
So
mm,
histories,
interesting.
mm,
and yet we're still the four of us on this talk are exploring these knots of,
mm,
yes, colonialism and identity and movement and migration and family history and spirituality, right?
mm.
And so I think there's I just wanted to say I think there's a richness to this conversation.
Thank
Yes,
you.
of course it's going to land on us in different ways, but the fact that we can actually
Has
cultivate this
it?
type of
Yes.
conversation. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up so openly and vulnerably. Like, this wasn't a gentle process for me
mm,
to be able to get to the place that I'm at now, because I feel so strongly and feel so connected to this place, and that there isn't anywhere else that I could really connect to. Um, even through my lineage directly. Um, I think another thing that's important context for where I am in the world, I mean, where David and Jen and I are in the world, is that colonialism is very recent here.
Mm.
Residential schools were still open when we were in elementary school.
Wow.
Um, my mom grew up in North Vancouver, which is the Squamish territory, and she remembers, like, as a child hearing the like drumming and singing down the hill and being scared of it
Yeah.
and
Mm,
not knowing what it was. Indigenous traditions like the potlatch were banned here for decades.
mm,
Um, and it was only decades because, like, organized colonialism didn't get here until
Yeah, totally.
the
mm,
1800s in a meaningful
Yeah.
way.
mm,
Um, on the East Coast or in other parts of Canada, like, a lot of that stuff got wiped out because it was hundreds of years.
Mm.
Um, and so to be like trying to figure out my own practices, knowing that until moments ago, the local practices were criminalized, um, I think is a big part of the complexity. I would love to not have a complicated relationship with space or
Yeah.
place.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I I joke about it, but I mean, I'm a very, very like city person, and I very, very rarely go leave. Nathan has to drag me kicking and screaming to touch my shoe on dirt, let alone, on in a mountain outside of the city. All this to say though is, part of my, and this is just how this conversation is also making me think about is like I'm so far detached from these types of place based and land based practices, but I also recognize, and this is sort of my own decolonization journey, that even having a thinking about reciprocity to land and territory,
Mm.
just thinking about that in terms of my own journey as like just a person here as a visitor, is something that's definitely really hanging on the back of my mind and really deeply connected to not yeah to spirituality, but also to like mental health. And I think I just yeah it's one of the things I really take for granted, definitely being here. Yeah.
There is a pull, though, I think, like a energetic pull to the West Coast. Yes, we're talking about the stereotypes of the West Coast, hippies, New Age, spirituality, all of those things. But the pull of every time I ask somebody, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, like, why are you here? Why did you decide? What makes you stay here? It is always, always, the answer is always because of the nature,
Hmm.
because of the land. There is something that keeps us here. Why are we here? The high cost of living, the impossible housing crisis. What is keeping us here?
Hmm.
And yet we're here. So many people want to be here, um, and the landscape is sublime. And I like David. I don't go out to nature very often, but when I do, it's like I could spend all day in nature, and the the dirt on me is not the kind of dirt. It's not the same dirt that is city dirt. I don't really need to shower when I've been spending all day in the dirt in the forest, but I do need to shower when I've been out walking in the city. It's a
Mm.
different kind of, yeah,
Mm.
absorption of my environment, you
Hmm.
Yeah.
know. Um, and it's so close. It's like right here. I can go there anytime. But even if I don't go there, it's still like all around me. The air quality, the moment I step off of the plane, I am immediately home,
Mm.
because the air is that's what's keeping me alive. But it's not other air. It's the air that's here.
Fully.
It's so clean
Mm.
here. It's so clean here. And there is something that I think is to be said about the cleanliness that adds to a kind of clarity that I think people are seeking when they're here. They want to understand. They want to be clear. They want to have clearer. They want, I don't know. It's like, yeah.
I read an interesting paper. This was about the states, but it was looking at religiosity by region. And one of the things they were looking at was like, why is
Mm,
religiosity so much lower in the Pacific Northwest compared to the rest of the country? And one of
mhm.
the things they sort of found was this relationship to nature.
Mm.
It's so
Mm.
tangibly
Yeah,
divine
yeah,
Mm.
that like you don't need to go to a church. You can just go outside. And I would say even in the city we get it. Like
yeah, exactly.
Vancouver is a beautiful city of towers, and the towers are tiny compared to the mountains.
Mm.
On a clear day, like the mountains are spectacular. I am constantly in awe.
Yeah, same.
And I 100% know that experience of stepping off a plane and just breathing in the salt air and the
Mm.
moist air and be like, oh, thank gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and
Mm.
I do the thing, and I've talked to some other people, and they do it too. But whenever I'm traveling somewhere else, I always take water. Like I'll take
Yes.
my empty water bottle through security, fill it up, and then savor it because we have such fabulous drinking water here just from the tap,
Yeah.
Mm.
and it's home.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
I have to say,
I the softness. Sorry, just on the water, the softness gets like even softer as the more west you go. So we were on Galiano Island, and the water there is so soft. But I had just like I was going to Toronto like immediately after, of course, and it's harder water there, and on Galiano, even in Vancouver, it takes me so long to wash my hands to like get everything like off. But then when I'm in Toronto or other parts of the world that has hard water, it's like immediately. It's so quick because it's just the water is like stripping all of your oils and dirt, right? It's like I'm
mm,
drier as a result. But here, I'm like, oh my God, just finish already. I'm spending like 5 minutes washing my hands and like my body. Sorry, that's an aside. Sorry, too much information. Amanda, go ahead.
I was thinking about what you were saying about the more I can't remember how you put it now. The fact that where you are, there's more spiritually connected people than in other places, um, and it made me think of South Africa and I guess the African continent as a whole. But I'm going to speak to South Africa because this is my home, and I've seen that happen. I feel as if when you cut people off from nature, when there are no more green spaces, when there's no more trees, where you can't dig your feet into the grass, it's almost like more and more people become harder, less. It's almost like they're less open to the elements in a way. And if there's something I'm so thankful for, a lot of my work is also to do with climate change, with conservation, with saving endangered species. I get to go to all these random middle of nowhere places like on mountain tops in KZN and in little valleys in the Eastern Cape and in hidden woodlands and in Mpumalanga. And the magic in those places. You feel as if you're going to turn a corner and walk through a veil and see something you weren't meant to see, like something so special. And you're just covered in like goose flesh because it's so immediate and it's right there. And in those moments, I cannot imagine denying that there's more to my world than just what I see and what I know. And I think when you live in places like that, and you get to feel that magic so tangibly often. I consider it a blessing how often I'm in the water and in the forest and in the mountains. It is a blessing because it reminds me all the time that there's so much that's there that's so much bigger than me. And it is just the most immense comfort. And it's something that in the work I do, I really want to see more green and water and freshness coming back to our townships and our suburbs and our cities because it's such a critical part of nature. It's such a critical part of reclaiming, I think, that reclaiming idea, reclaiming spirituality and place, and joy, so yeah, I like what you said about that greenness and that feel is such a critical part of that spirituality.
One thing, I think one part of my journey that it took a while to get to, but I hope me talking about it would allow other people to get to it faster.
Mm.
Was that like for a while I spent a lot of time trying to find existing stuff that fit.
Mm.
And when I gave myself permission to just make shit up, it made such a difference. Because no, there isn't a like queer indigenous neo-pagan tradition that I could be a part of here.
Right.
That's not a thing. Um, and I and I wanted stuff that like my full self could be present in. There's even a lot of like there's a lot of uh, European neo-paganism, like Wicca, for example, very heterosexual.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm tired, you know. Make it gay.
Make it
Uh,
gay.
make it here. Yeah, and have it like infused with my values and my beliefs and the stuff that my spirit needs.
Mm.
But yeah, being able to just like make shit up or massage things or
Mm.
lots of stuff I have learned from and then found ways to make it my own. Yeah, that's been that was a big shift for me.
When I was little, my granny used to talk about creation magic and how some people, because of where they end up or who they are, much of the diasporic African religions, in fact, fall under creation magic because they were taken from what they knew, ripped away from everything, their language stolen from them. And over generations, you have to make shit up to make it work for where you are. And my grandmother always used to say to me, there's something particularly special about people like you who are able to create the magic in that moment, and create the spells and the chants and the community you need in order to survive the space you're in. So I think that's really beautiful. And yeah, I hope more people hear that and like follow your path because it's the only way. It's the only way.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I could hear you speak forever. It's like it's very soothing. Um, because you are speaking intentionally and
Mm,
the way you speak also slows me down and it's a really nice reminder that
mm.
I don't need to always vomit at
Yes.
people, and fill the space, but actually be thoughtful and intentional about what I'm putting out in the world. So
Mm.
I do have to say, you and Jamie definitely need to hang out and speak about all of this. I wish he were part of this podcast because he has those histories and, the work and the practice that's very aligned and shared. He's a bit more metal than you.
That's
But
not saying much.
okay. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for this. I have so many more questions, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, and we will see you all at our next episode.
Bye.
Bye.